The Indiana Fever just dropped a bomb that has the entire WNBA shaking. Their GM is building what they're calling an insane super team around Caitlin Clark for 2026. And what they're planning might actually break the league. Right now, the Fever roster for 2026 looks completely empty. Like, seriously empty. Only 3 players are locked in with contracts: Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Michaela Timpson. That's it. 3 players. But here's the thing. This isn't a problem. This is actually the opportunity the Fever have been waiting for. And the front office knows exactly what they're doing. They're about to rebuild this entire franchise from the ground, up with one goal in mind: putting the perfect pieces around Caitlin Clark to create something we haven't seen before in women's basketball. Let's talk about the elephant in the room first. Caitlin Clark missed most of the 2025 season. The player everyone was calling the future face of the WNBA was stuck on the sidelines dealing with soft tissue injuries. And these weren't just minor tweaks. These were the kind of injuries that kept her out game after game after game. The Fever had to figure out how to survive without their superstar, and honestly, it exposed every single weakness this roster had. When Clark was healthy and on the court, she was putting up numbers that proved all the hype was real. About 16.5 points per game, 5 rebounds. And here's the crazy part: 8.8 assists per game. That assist number is absolutely insane for someone who was supposed to be just a scorer coming out of college. She was showing the entire league that she's not just a shooter, she's a true point guard who can run an offense at an elite level. But then the injuries hit, and the Fever had to play without her. Game after game, they were trying to figure out how to win basketball games without the player their entire system was built around. And you know what happened? Some players stepped up in ways nobody expected. Other pieces showed they maybe weren't the right fit. The whole season became this brutal evaluation period where the front office got to see exactly what they had and exactly what they needed. The problem wasn't just about surviving without Clark, though. The real issue was much bigger than that. See, the WNBA collective bargaining agreement is expiring after the 2025 season. That means pretty much everyone becomes a free agent. The entire league is about to hit the reset button. Every team is going to have a chance to rebuild. Every player is going to have a chance to choose where they want to play. And the Fever are sitting there with basically a blank canvas and one massive question. How do you build the perfect team around a generational talent like Caitlin Clark when you're competing with 11 other teams trying to do the exact same thing with their own stars? This is where it gets really interesting, because the Fever aren't just trying to build a good team. They're not even trying to build a great team. They're trying to build a super team. And there's a huge difference. Let's break down what the Fever actually have right now and what they're working with. You've got 3 players locked in for 2026. Caitlin Clark is obviously the centerpiece. She's still on her rookie contract, which means she's not going anywhere. Then there's Aaliyah Boston, who's also on a rookie deal. Boston was the #1 overall pick before Clark came into the league, and she's already proven she can be a dominant force in the paint. The third player is Michaela Timpson, another rookie contract situation, so you've got your franchise point guard who can score and distribute at an elite level. You've got your starting center who can protect the rim and finish around the basket. That's actually a really solid foundation to build around. The Clark and Boston pick and roll combination alone has the potential to be absolutely lethal if they can get the right pieces around them. But here's where the Fever front office is showing they're thinking 3 steps ahead of everyone else. They're not just looking at who they have under contract. They're looking at the entire free agent market, and they're asking themselves one specific question. What does Caitlin Clark need to succeed at the highest possible level? And the answer to that question is actually pretty clear when you watch how Clark plays. She needs shooters, like really good shooters. Clark is one of the best passers in the entire WNBA. When she drives and kicks, or when she runs pick and roll and finds the open player, those shots need to go in. If you surround her with players who can't shoot, defenses will just pack the paint and dare everyone else to beat them. That's not going to work. She also needs defenders. Clark is a solid defender herself, but she's not going to be locking down the other team's best player every night. She needs to be able to focus her energy on the offensive end. That means the Fever need to find players who can guard multiple positions, who can switch on screens, and who can make life difficult for opposing offenses without Clark having to carry that load. And here's the third piece that people aren't talking about enough. She needs players who are okay not being the star. That might sound obvious, but it's actually a huge factor. You can't put a bunch of players around Clark who need the ball in their hands to be effective. You need players who are comfortable playing off the ball, setting screens, moving without the ball, and making the extra pass. Players who understand their role and embrace it. Now, let's talk about the player everyone knows the Fever are going after, Kelsey Mitchell. Mitchell has been with the Fever for years. She's been through the rebuild, the struggles, the coaching changes, all of it. And in 2025, when Caitlin Clark was out injured and the Fever needed someone to step up and carry the scoring load, Mitchell went absolutely crazy. She averaged 20.2 points per game. That was a career high for her by a significant margin. But here's what makes Mitchell so valuable for what the Fever are trying to build. She proved she can be the #1 option when needed. But she's also shown she's perfectly comfortable being the #2 option next to Clark. That's extremely rare. Most players who can score 20 points a game want to be the primary scorer. They want the ball in their hands. Mitchell has shown she can do both. She can catch and shoot off Clark's passes. She can attack closeouts when defenses focus on Clark. And when Clark is off the court or having an off night, Mitchell can take over and run the offense herself. The Fever front office has made it crystal clear that re-signing Mitchell is a top priority. They've been in communication with her camp. They've made it known publicly that they want her back. And honestly, it makes perfect sense. If you're building around Clark, Mitchell is the exact kind of veteran presence you want. She knows the organization, she knows the city, and she's already proven she can coexist with Clark on the court. But Mitchell is just one piece. The Fever are also looking at other free agents who could fit this system. Players like Sophie Cunningham have been mentioned in rumors. Cunningham is one of the best three-point shooters in the league. She's also a tough defender who isn't afraid of physical play. That's exactly the kind of player who would thrive next to Clark. Imagine Clark driving into the paint with Cunningham spotted up in the corner. The defense has to make a choice. Help on Clark and give up an open 3 to one of the league's best shooters, or stay home on Cunningham and let Clark finish at the rim. There's no good answer. Then there's Lexi Hull, who might not be a household name, but fits the mold of what the Fever need. Hull can shoot, she can defend, and she doesn't need plays called for her to be effective. She's the kind of glue player that every championship team needs. Someone who does all the little things that don't show up in the box score, but make a massive difference in winning basketball games. The Fever also have draft picks to work with. The WNBA draft isn't as deep as the NBA draft, but there are always talented players available who can contribute right away. And with the way college basketball is set up now, with players staying longer and developing more before going pro, rookie players are often more ready to contribute than they used to be. The Fever scouting department is already looking at guards and wings who can shoot and defend. Players who can step in and play rotation minutes right away without needing years of development. Here's where the Superteam concept really starts to take shape. The Fever aren't just trying to sign good players. They're trying to find players who specifically complement what Clark does. It's not about getting the best available free agent. It's about getting the right free agent who makes Clark better and who gets better playing with Clark. Think about how the best teams in basketball history were built. The Golden State Warriors didn't just have Stephen Curry. They had Klay Thompson, who could shoot just as well as Curry. They had Draymond Green, who could defend and facilitate. They had role players who understood their jobs and did them perfectly. That's what the Fever are trying to recreate. Build a system where Clark is the engine, but every other part is designed to make that engine run as efficiently as possible. And then the Fever GM said it. In an interview that sent shockwaves through the entire WNBA, they described their vision for the 2026 roster as a super team built around Caitlin Clark. Not a good team. Not a playoff team. A super team. Those words carry weight. That's a statement of intent. That's the front office telling the entire league. We're not playing around anymore. We're not just trying to make the playoffs. We're building something that can dominate for years. The reaction was immediate. Players around the league started paying attention. Free agents who might not have considered Indiana before are now listening. Because here's the thing, players want to win. They want to compete for championships. And if the Fever are serious about building a super team around one of the most talented players in the world, that becomes an attractive destination really fast. But there's also shock mixed in with the excitement. Because the Fever have been a struggling franchise for years. They've had some good seasons here and there, but they've never been considered a destination team. They've never been the team that big-name free agents circle on their list. And now suddenly they're talking about super teams. They're talking about being championship contenders. That's a massive shift in mindset and expectations. The WNBA community is buzzing about this. Analysts are trying to figure out who the Fever might target in free agency. Fans are creating mock rosters on social media showing what a Fever super team could look like. Other teams are probably looking at what Indiana is doing and wondering if they need to adjust their own plans. Because if the Fever actually pull this off, if they actually build a roster that makes Caitlin Clark even better than she already is, the entire league might have to deal with a new dynasty forming in Indianapolis. And here's what makes this even more intriguing. The timing is perfect. Clark is coming back from injury, which means she's hungry to prove herself. She lost a whole season to injuries. That's going to fuel her. She's going to come back with something to prove. And if the Fever can surround her with the right talent, with players who fit her style and maximize her abilities, there's no ceiling to what this team could accomplish. The blueprint is there. Spacing the floor with shooters so Clark has room to operate. Defenders who can get stops without her having to do everything. A veteran like Mitchell who can take pressure off her when needed. Draft picks who can contribute immediately. And most importantly, a front office that understands what they have and is willing to do whatever it takes to build the perfect environment for their franchise player to thrive. Other teams are going to try to do the same thing with their own stars. That's just how the league works. But the Fever have an advantage that not everyone else has. They have Caitlin Clark, the player who broke attendance records in college, the player who brings a level of attention and excitement that the WNBA hasn't seen before. Free agents know that playing with Clark means more exposure, more opportunities, and potentially more success. That's a recruiting pitch that writes itself. So where does this leave the Indiana Fever heading into 2026? They have a blank canvas with 3 players under contract. They have a clear vision of what they want to build. They have a franchise player who's about to enter her prime. They have cap space and flexibility that most teams would kill for. And they have a front office that's not afraid to make bold statements about their intentions. The super team concept isn't just talk. It's a real plan that's already in motion. The Fever are going to attack free agency aggressively. They're going to use their draft picks strategically. They're going to build a roster specifically designed to maximize what Caitlin Clark brings to the table. And if they execute this plan the way they've laid it out, the Fever could go from playoff hopefuls to championship favorites in one off-season. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. Free agency is unpredictable. Players have their own priorities and preferences. Other teams are going to be competing for the same talent. But the Fever have something special to offer, the chance to be part of something potentially historic. The chance to play alongside a generational talent and compete for championships. The 2026 WNBA season is still months away, but the foundation for what could be a dynasty is already being laid. Caitlin Clark is the centerpiece. Aaliyah Boston provides the interior presence. Kelsey Mitchell is likely coming back as the secondary scorer. And the rest of the roster is going to be filled with players who fit the system perfectly. Shooters, defenders, high. Basketball IQ players who understand their roles. The Fever GM called it an insane super team plan. And looking at all the pieces and how they fit together, that description might actually be accurate. This isn't just roster building. This is a complete reimagining of what the Indiana Fever can be. From struggling franchise to potential powerhouse. From afterthought to must-watch television. All because they have a generational player and a front office willing to build the perfect situation around her. The rest of the league better be paying attention. Because if the Fever pull this off, if they actually construct the super team they're talking about, everyone else is going to be playing catch-up. And with Caitlin Clark leading the way, surrounded by the right talent, catching up might not be possible. Subscribe so you don't miss any updates on how this Fever super team comes together.